Dear viewers, welcome to this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, a renowned Cameroonian artist tells the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, to step down. Charlotte DIPANDA thinks that it is time for change, without which any meaningful development cannot be achieved in the Republic of Cameroon. And Reverend Father says that the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, has to sit down and discuss the way out of the Anglophone crisis with separatist leaders. Reverend Father Ludovic Lado was speaking on La Vérité en Face over the weekend. Once more, thanks, dear viewers, for joining us on this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. A renowned Cameroonian artist says that time has come for change in the Republic of Cameroon, and she thinks that without a change at the helm of the state, no meaningful development can be achieved in the country. Charlotte DIPANDA was speaking to Voice of America, and she is urging the President of the Republic to step down. Immaculate Fogwe.
Before she was born, July 18, 1985, there was a man on the presidential seat in our country, Cameroon. And now, she is 34 years old. The same man is still president.
J'avoue que moi, par exemple, je n'ai connu que le président actuel.
Renowned artist Charlotte DIPANDA, like many other Cameroonians of her age range, have known only one head of state, Paul Biya, throughout their lifetime.
Qu'est-ce que ça me ferait du bien d'avoir une autre proposition?
She thinks it is time for change. It is time to turn the old page to see what the country can offer to the young generation who are seeing what is happening elsewhere and are hoping to see the things also change in their own country.
Parce que c'est une jeunesse qui est ouverte aussi à l'extérieur, qui voit ce qui se passe ailleurs et qui a le devoir, en tout cas l'espère aussi pour son pays.
Speaking to Voice of America, Charlotte DIPANDA said,
Il est temps que le Cameroun se développe parce que
it is time for Cameroon to develop because there is no possible real development without a change at the helm of the state. According to her, the present regime has offered all it can, and it will be profitable to step down and give way to others to take the nation forward.
And one of the major failures of the current regime being highlighted by civil society and political leaders in and out of the country is the 4-year-long socio-political and security conflict or armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the country that has killed hundreds of thousands, that has displaced hundreds of thousands, and many are still being killed, many are still being tortured, and villages destroyed. And according to Reverend Father Ludovic Lado, who was speaking on La Vérité en Face on Equinoxe Television yesterday, the regime has failed to solve this problem because it has refused to sit on the same table with separatist leaders to chart the way or to negotiate the way out of the Anglophone crisis. And the Reverend Father thinks that the President of the Republic should go to the northwest region, should go to the southwest region, should sit on the same table with separatist leaders and discuss a way out. Take a listen to him.
It is almost like hiding your head, in the sand, pretending that the problem has been solved. And we have been doing that for the last 4 years. And we see the results. And what are the results? People are still losing their lives, losing their properties, human suffering still going on. One of the things, again, that I expected the president to do is to go there. This thing has been going on for 4 years. How many people have been killed? How many people are exiled? How many men, women, and children? The president has never set foot there. Which kind of leader is she? I don't know. Maybe he has his own understanding of political leadership. But leadership of proximity, of compassion, requires a head of state to go there at least once and speak to the people. Even if they insult you, you go there and say, okay, what's the matter? He has never set foot there. We are talking here about the major threat to national unity. Again, as you have said, it was not mentioned in his speech. Maybe because he thinks he has been talking about it for the last 3 or 4 years. But it's not over. And that's why I was saying that you can't speak of reconstruction when the war is not yet over. We need first to pacify it, to bring people together, to talk, and let them have a say on the solution. You don't sit somewhere else, manufacture solutions, and come and throw it at people and say, that is what you need, that is going to solve your problem. We have been doing that for the last 4 years.
And beyond the head of state going to Anglophone Cameroon and sitting on the same table to negotiate the way out of the Anglophone crisis with separatist leaders, this is the way out of the conflict, according to Reverend Father Ludovic Lado. Take a listen. Calling on the President of the Republic to grant general amnesty and so on. What do you think should be done at this point in time to remedy some of the wrongs that you're highlighting?
Again, as I have just said in French, the only way out of this crisis, and we have been saying this all along, is dialogue with everybody, including those who have been judged and condemned and jailed. Bring them to the table. I don't want to compare them to Nelson Mandela, but anyway, Nelson Mandela was in jail, condemned for treason. But at the end of the day, he was head of state. These guys have their reasons why they want to separate. Personally, I don't think it is the solution. I don't think that dividing the Cameroon into 2 states is the solution. I mean, 2 separate states is the solution. I'm more for a federal solution. I mean, federalist approach to this issue, which is not new in this country. We were a federal country before, so I don't see a problem. So again, we should look at all the options and talk about it, and make sure that we come up with a solution which will put an end to bloodshed and bring peace to those wishing. And from there, we can talk about reconstruction, special status, or whatever people decide around the table. But so, to answer your question, I am for their release and for dialogue.
Human Rights Watch condemns the poor treatment of inmates in incarceration centers in the Republic of Cameroon, and in a recent statement on Radio France International, the organization's senior researcher for Central Africa, Ilaria Allegossi, highlighted the case of Barrister Shufai in the Kondingi maximum security prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. For me, Anton Sander has the details.
It's the rising coronavirus threats in Cameroon. Human Rights Watch is expressing concerns over poor detention conditions in the country's prisons. The organization's senior researcher for Central Africa, Ilaria Allegossi, denounces what is qualified as poor and inhumane treatment inflicted on one of the 6 detainees of the Kondingi maximum security prison in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, Barrister Shufai Blaise. Shufai Blaise is one of the detainees of the Anglophone crisis, condemned to life imprisonment after he and other separatist leaders were arrested in Nigeria in early 2018.
Son arrestation, son transfert au Cameroun, toutes les procédures judiciaires ont été entachées d'irrégularités.
His arrest and transfer to Cameroon was marred by irregularities. May 16, he is brought to the Yaoundé military hospital in a critical state. He was later taken back into the maximum security prison, where he is detained, following pressure from the prison superintendent. In the hospital, he was subjected to a degrading treatment. He was chained for a whole night, even though he could not move. His return to the prison exposes him to risk, considering that his health situation remains disturbing, and coupled with the COVID-19 risk in prisons with poor detention conditions and limited medical attention.
Les conditions hygiéniques sanitaires sont précaires et l'assistance médicale est limitée.
The International Human Rights Organization is urging the government of Cameroon to ensure that sick inmates have access to proper medical attention.
And as the COVID-19 figures continue rising in the Republic of Cameroon, with close to 5,000 confirmed cases already recorded, the President of the Republic and other government authorities call for a united front, urging all Cameroonians to unite against a common enemy. But some analysts think that there is no unity in the fight against the coronavirus. One of them is Reverend Father Ludovic Lado, who thinks that the government is frustrating some individual and collective initiatives against the coronavirus, and this is in sharp contrast to its call for a united fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Details in this report.
On the platform of La Vérité en Face on Equinoxe television, the anthropologist and Jesuit priest Ludovic Lado says the aspect of unity is far-fetched in Cameroon in the fight against COVID-19, as several efforts of private individuals have been thwarted.
What do we call unity here? Because again, recently there was a lot of debate about parallel initiatives which were blocked by the state, or state governments at least, officials, because one political party wanted to run its own show with regard to fighting COVID-19, and they were not happy about it. So how contradictory is it then? And let's all unite and fight this danger, but at the same time you are frustrating complementary efforts, or at least parallel efforts.
According to him, the act of legalizing an effort before making a move with administrative lapses in the country could lead to several deaths.
I agree. If you want to take a legalistic approach, of course, you can always find a reason to stop a good initiative. But if Cameroonians had to wait for legal procedures to survive, many survive thanks to their personal initiatives, and we should encourage, local initiatives and stop this legalistic approach, which in fact I think is a way of simply covering up a political game.
The anthropologist and Jesuit priest says the outbreak of the coronavirus has made Cameroonians in particular and Africa in general to give a value to natural drugs.
The attempt to submit what we call traditional medicine or African medicine, I don't know, to the parameters of modern medicine, it doesn't work. Because before modern medicine came, our people were treating themselves. And there's local knowledge about that. What we need to do is to develop it. Not only at the national level, but at the African level. One of the merits of COVID-19 is that it has legitimated in a certain way traditional or African urban medicine.
The closure of a private polyclinic at the Bali neighborhood in Douala was also an aspect the Reverend Father talked about, saying government was supposed to give the private sector a special attention during this crisis period for them to fight together.
When there is a crisis like this, a responsible government should bring together all its best minds. As long as the government can handle it alone, there's no problem. But if they can't handle it, then they should open it up, but with some guidelines. In terms of charging, for example, if they say it is free for everybody, then even if you are in a private facility, they should allow, the government should be, should pay the bill.
Reverend Father Ludovic Lado commenting on the threat given to the traditional ruler of Minkang in the Bolowa 1 subdivision of the South region for denying the presidential offer, says it was the right of the chief to speak out his mind.
Les actes du chef de l'État. Vous dites merci. Un tien vaut mieux que deux tu auras.
And teachers' trade unions in the Republic of Cameroon are expressing worries over the possibility of school resumption on the 1st of June 2020 as instructed by the President of the Republic of Cameroon. They think that the measures that have been announced by the Ministries of Basic, Secondary and Higher Education are not enough to keep children safe from contracting the deadly coronavirus when they effectively return to school on the 1st of June 2020. And they are proposing that the government should take other additional measures, including ensuring that face masks are available free for all the pupils and students who will be returning to school, notably those of examination classes in the primary and secondary school levels, and also that the number of students per class or pupils should be reduced to 24, and that teachers should be given additional financial motivation to enable them to do the work, and that the measures that will be put in place at the level of the entrance of the school to ensure that the students going in properly checked should be intensified. These are some of the measures that the teachers are proposing that the government should put in place, and that schools should be effectively disinfected before the resumption of classes in schools across the country. And some politicians think that the government, or are saying that the government is not taking adequate steps or the right steps towards the fight against coronavirus, notably as far as education is concerned. And one of them is the communications secretary of the Popular Action Party, Fabrice Lena. Take a listen to some of the loopholes that he is highlighting in government's anti-COVID-19 strategy as far as schools are concerned.
I don't understand why the ministers and those responsible for taking decisions in the sector like education do it without consulting at least the people concerned. Teachers' trade union in Cameroon are all infiltrated and are now doing things in the whims and caprices of their sponsors and donors, which are the ministers and the delegates. The poor private school teachers have been wallowing in abject poverty for the past 4 months. The government has done nothing. Not even an incentive or encouragement or whatsoever. They don't know how they are paying their house rent, their bills, and so on. Other sectors that are more dangerous than school, like the markets, like the social gathering, the bars, and so on, are open. And the Ministry of Health the other day mentioned that we are getting to the complicated phase of this COVID-19 pandemic in Cameroon. What do you make out of this? School resume and put the life of children in danger, but the life of Cameroonians are already in danger with the bars and the snacks open.
The Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, has effectively said that the country is moving into a more complicated or critical stage of the COVID-19 pandemic, and he has continued urging all Cameroonians to be more responsible and disciplined by respecting all the measures put in place by the government and the sanitation rules of the World Health Organization to stop the spread of the coronavirus in the country. And religious leaders are also in the fight against coronavirus. In the southwest regional chief town, Boya, the imam of the town, called on Muslim faithfuls to be more vigilant as the coronavirus the pandemic worsens in the country. He was speaking yesterday during the celebration of the Feast of Ramadan. Correspondent Derek Jato files in details.
The 2020 Feast of Ramadan is commemorated in an unusual atmosphere.
The message of the Muslim community, first of all, we know the COVID-19 issue. may any individual be sure that start protection on your own before you expect any protection from other side.
In Buea, the southwest regional capital, El Haj Mohammed Abubakar, Imam of the Buea Central Mosque, centered his message on vigilance.
You know, the earlier the better. When it's diagnosed earlier, there's possibility, and in fact, it is free. It's free. It's not even. It's not some. The state has made it free. Once you report and it is diagnosed that it is positive, it is free. And because of this attitude, some people, even when you are having it, people refuse to go to the hospital with normal sickness. This is not heard of. So we need to do something, and that something is bringing people together. Naturally, we shouldn't have had this prayer today. Naturally, but it was necessary at the hem of the region. We need to send information to our faithfuls who are still doubting, that the corona is real.
In Mutengeni, Alhaji Keja Saidu, president of the Mutengeni Muslim Association, reminded his Mutengeni Muslim brothers and sisters that Islam is peace.
As far as a message for the Mutengeni Muslim community is concerned, we don't have any other message but for the message of peace. Islam is peace. We seek for peace in the community. When there is peace, there will be progress. When there is peace, development will follow.
This Johnson town into the southwest region is increasingly witnessing an influx, and this Muslim community here in Mutengeni also use the occasion to pray for Allah to enable them build a befitting mosque for him. The special prayer session marking the end of fasting from Buea to Mutengeni also witnessed the respect of social distancing because of COVID-19, and the forces of law and order were present to enforce this measure from the Cameroon government.
Latest COVID-19 figures from the Ministry of Public Health indicate that Cameroon is now counting 5,422 COVID-19 cases and 165 deaths, and 2,900 or 293 new cases were confirmed yesterday in the Republic of Cameroon. And before we go out of the country, news streaming into our studios indicate that the residents of President Maurice Kamto, the president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, was attacked earlier today by armed individuals, and Professor Maurice Kamto says the attackers chanted death threats promising to go violent, and he further says that he tried contacting the police to no avail, and he also indicates that Cameroonians, or he calls on Cameroonians to remain mobilized and vigilant. Now out of Cameroon, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has said that Nigerian farmers must produce enough for the country to eat. He said the country has no money to import food. According to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, even before the COVID-19 crisis, farmers had not been able to satisfy demand for Nigeria's population of over 200 million people. Coming up next, Talking Point. Dr. Ndifo Peter Louis, Secretary General of the Cameroon Medical Council, is joining us from Limbe in the southwest region of Cameroon. Good evening, Doctor. You're welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Babila.
All right.
Of Equinoxe television.
Thanks for joining us today. The COVID-19 figures in Cameroon continue rising. More than 5,000 confirmed cases already recorded as of now. What's your analysis of the evolution of the pandemic in the country?
Yeah, Babila, to the interview you granted, if me, after the measures that were taken, I think I said I didn't want to be a prophet of doom, and I said if Cameroonians don't take put forward responsible measures to be able to prevent this infection, see an exponential the infection in our community. And so, given the background that our community, our people, who actually don't respect significantly measures that are supposed to see this significant increase. I think everybody has, who has acted over the media, did warn and suspect that things like this are going to come on, in the next few weeks. I think we are now just 3 weeks to the date where the relaxations of the barrier methods were carried out. At the time when relaxation measures were carried out, we were just like 2,000 actually diagnosed in Cameroon. Now we are 800 unofficially. I hope those figures are correct. And so if we take from the period 3 weeks from the time where we had the relaxation of the barrier method, 150% in diagnosed cases in Cameroon. So I think it's not surprising or people do not respect.
Right. Dr. Ndifo Peter Louis, the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, has said that the country is moving into a critical stage of the pandemic. What is the meaning of that? I hope I can understand what he is talking about. When he's talking about a critical stage of the pandemic, it means that each and every one of us has a responsibility to be able to prevent this infection. Critical means that if nothing is done, we are going to move into a catastrophic situation where we will not be able to manage the number of cases, and I think the number of cases are going to increase very, very rapidly, and the health facilities that we have to be able to take care of this. So when he talks about critical, I hope I understand. I hope I understand him. It means that it is a situation where each person has to respect the guidelines that has been prescribed by the government. If not, we are going to have a very significant, increase in the number of cases that we are having again today. I think that's what he was trying to talk about. Are we moving towards the worst earlier announced by the World Health Director General?
I don't think we are moving towards the worst because the Cameroonians are very, they wait for critical moments to be able to take critical decisions. I think there are many more things that we could be able to do. As I want 4th of May, if you can recall, I said it is not because bars have been opened, it is not because nightclubs have been opened, it is not because of the relaxation of barrier methods that we should not be responsible. It is not that we should sit down and still relax. One of the things that happened in the relaxation of the barrier method, people thought that, erroneously thought that, that Cameroon was under control. That the pandemic has significantly reduced, which was a very false impression that we had. And I think I can't say that we are heading in for a worst. I think they can be able to do, because I know the Ministry of Health and the government is also taking just, while seeing the figures, to be able to enforce the barrier methods. But then, I think personally, what I want to say to Cameroonians is that, they should not take this pandemic to be a joke. We should be able to respect scrupulously the methods. Because if you go now, people have relaxed and not putting on face masks. Many people are on their hands. More and more people are going into bars. More and more people are going into nightclubs, and they are not putting on barrier methods. Apart from that, more and more funerals are being organized with the huge populations that we are viewing, and more ceremonies are being organized, weddings and things like that, without respecting the barrier methods that have been put in place. Churches have resumed, and people feel free, and some people, it's irrespective of all the sensitization that is carried out, that COVID-19 is a myth. COVID-19 is not a myth, but if nothing is done to responsibilize, we'll go into a situation where we'll have,
there's some people who think that politicians who think that the government has abandoned the safety of the citizens in the hands of the citizens themselves by lifting some of the restrictions that were earlier imposed to stop the spread of coronavirus. Do you think that government should go back to those measures? Government should restore those measures that were lifted some weeks back?
I think that should be a much more responsible thing to do. Failing once, should be like, okay, teaching us a lesson. There is nothing like going back to had a role to try and save the economy. But, while hoping that responsible in respecting the measures that were prescribed, accompanying measures that were prescribed and not being respected by this very, very population, because and moving into a situation of no return, I don't think, except if doesn't see what all of us are seeing, but I think that going back into restricting the barrier method.
All right, we're having some connection issues there. Dr. Ndifo Peter Louis is a medical doctor and Secretary General of the Cameroon Medical Council. Thanks, Doctor, for joining us today from Limbe. That's it for this edition of the news. Thanks, dear viewers, for staying with us. Goodbye.